Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of EETV, where I'm trying to bring everything in entertainment. And today we will be speaking about what would make a good show for Power Rangers, whether now, in the future, specials, etc. What would make a good Power Rangers show? And I want to tackle this from a different point of view. I won't necessarily use a lot of examples from other Power Ranger seasons or Sentai seasons. I'm going to try not to use a lot of examples. I'm going to stick to just certain, I would say, tropes and or situations that would happen in a show that might make a good Power Rangers show that all of the fandom will enjoy. So let's get into this. First topic: interesting and complex villains. Yes, if the villains have more combat experience than the Rangers do, then the Rangers need to be taking a beating until they get a hold of their powers. And this should happen, especially if the team's newly formed. They're not going to know how to gel. Now, I know in some instances, you just like with the Mighty Morphin team being the primary example, that some Ranger teams, when they receive their powers, then they know how to pilot their Zords because it feels like it's second nature to them because they have bonded with the Morphin grid and it kind of helps them out. But at the same time, that doesn't account for teamwork and battle prowess or just overall strategy when it comes to battle. I would like to see a show that takes that into accountability. The bad guys having one up on the Rangers, even though the good guys have more power, but not necessarily the combat experience to best the villains of yet. One other thing that would make a good thing, while we're still on this topic of interesting and complex villains, the villain should be humanized. Now, I know this is a trope that seems to be utilized a lot in today's media, but they can do it to a point where it's not the same old. Use your creativity. Show why this villain is humanized. Maybe someone actually from the side of good did something wrong to this supposed villain. We've never seen that in Power Rangers before. So let's try that. I think that's a good idea. The next point that I have for interesting and competent villains, maybe the villain is a former Ranger or disagreed with Zordon or Ninja. You could have that, and you can see why this person turned out to be evil, and it's not necessarily that they're completely evil. Maybe this is a way to get their point across, or maybe you can have it in such a way that they utilized the forces of evil to gain the power, and then they double crossed the evil and came back to the side of good, but not completely on the Ranger side. Like maybe they still have agendas that don't quite line up with the Power Rangers, and they still want to get their agendas across. Maybe not making that person an anti-hero, but just having someone maybe that just utilize the evil side to get all the resources together so they would have enough power to accomplish their goals, but their agendas and or goals don't necessarily line up with our heroes and heroines. That's all I'm saying. All right, the next thing that should be there, a twist. You know how you watch the M. Night Shyamalan movies or any other movies with a good twist? Let the show, whether it be the special or the reboot, contain a unforeseen element. What if the Rangers quote unquote first villain is not a villain, and he or she was testing the new Rangers to prepare them for the real threat? What about that? What about that? You could have someone and it was just all a test, not making light of the danger. What if they really put them in battle situations that they really would have been harmed or killed if they didn't take it seriously or dug deep and found the motivation to conquer? What if that thing was just like, yeah, this is to get you ready for the real battle? And in that way you still have the heroes and the heroines going, wait a minute, you could have killed us with that. And they're saying, well, you think that was bad? Wait till this invaded army you're going to face in a couple months is coming down. What are you going to do then? We should have a twist. I think that's a good idea. The next thing that would make a good Power Ranger special or reboot or new show overall, consequences. Things that happen within the universe that stick throughout the entire continuity of the show. Give an example. Rangers, allies, or civilians should all be affected by the consequences that do not go away after the episode ends. So if the Megazord, for example, falls into the building, that building is still in rubble or in the process of being repaired, depending on how long the time skip is between episodes, or if there's even a time skip at all. That's what I'm talking about. Another example of this is if someone is injured, like an example, a broken leg, that a person that received that injury, the average time for a broken leg is like 6 to 8 weeks. That person, if you're not skipping ahead of a time skip for 6 to 8 weeks, that person who received that broken leg should be in that cast for 6 to 8 weeks. Afterwards, they will receive physical therapy. That's what I'm talking about. It has to be attention to detail and paying attention to the consequences, the continuity of the whole story. The Rangers' actions also have to have consequences. If they make a mistake in battle or they lax on their training and something happens because of their lack of effort or because of a poor decision during battle, it should have consequences. Either the civilian gets hurt, or the Zord gets damaged, or one of the Rangers get hurt, or maybe Zordon or Alpha gets hurt. It has to be consequences, and it has to continue within the whole continuity of the show. The next thing that should be there, this is our number 4, details. Examples being, the powers should be explained in detail. Why did you choose Billy Cranston to have the Wolf Sword? Is he cunning? Is he smart? We got a little bit of that in the old continuity, but it has to continue. It should be as detailed as possible so the audience understands why these Rangers have been chosen. Also, how the Rangers pilot their Zords should be explained in detail. Is it just second nature, or is it something they have to practice? Why is it second nature? Like, show an analysis that I'm just using Billy Cranston, for example. Show an analysis how he was able to maybe sneak somebody into the hospital, and they looked at the brain scan and saw that the brain waves were slightly different. And this is how they're able to pilot the Zords, because their brain waves are vibrating on a completely higher frequency, and that's why they're able to do all these things. That should be explained in detail. Also, are the Zords self-repairing? If not, what tools are utilized to fix the Zords? That should be there. The next subject in the details. All details should be remembered and utilized for future reference to prevent retcons. I'll say it again. All details within this show should be remembered and utilized for future reference to prevent retcons. Attention to detail. Okay, our last and 5th point. Interesting and complex heroes and heroines. Now, I have 4 examples of this. The heroes or heroines should be flawed. 1 or maybe 3 should go to the side of supposed evil and have a redemption arc. So you can have Ranger versus Ranger for a while within the same team. Just a idea, doesn't mean it has to be set in stone. The next example, the heroes or the heroines should have problems like an unstable home life, trust issues, problems with authority, that nature. This is another thing just latching on to they should be flawed because you want the characters to be relatable. The Rangers and their mentors slash allies should clash over how to be a Ranger. So if you have civilians helping out the Rangers and the civilians are the man slash woman in the chair, it should be conflict. Like, also, mistakes in combat should be made. Now, the reason why I included that in there as well is because we're talking about high schoolers here. Even though, if we're using my theory that I just mentioned in this video, if their brain waves are functioning at a higher level, which allows them to pilot the Zords and how to fire the weapons and everything they're using as a Ranger that they never used before, and all of a sudden it's like second nature to them. That's if they take that route. Mistakes are still going to be made. They're not perfect. Just because they have superpowers now does not mean they're perfect. So, show some trial and error. And the trial and error needs to last more than just 2 to 3 episodes. Okay? We're talking about, especially if you're having the Rangers coming from high school, or it doesn't even matter if they're coming from high school. If none of the Rangers that come into the team have prior military experience or just experience that they learned from an adult in their life or someone related in their life relating to combat, they should not be the best at it. Now, if it comes to martial arts, yes, they should be able to adapt that right over. But I'm talking about weapons combat, firing the weapons, using the bow, the cannons, especially that cannon has kickback to it. That axe cannon that Zach used, kickback on it. Even though Kimberly Hart was a gymnast, that doesn't mean she's an expert at firing bows. There should be some trial and error to this, and they should have training. Here goes some 80s training montage, or just something to build the Rangers up and do it in the right way. Showing them how. And this is why people love the hero's journey, because they love the hero's journey because if you show them like how everybody has to go through, you start off with very little or nothing and you work very hard to get there. You can show the Rangers working very hard to get there, and they have them being who they were before they got powers, and then how they utilize that responsibility to overcome their shortcomings to become better overall people. And that's what should be there. Make it interesting, make it relatable for today, and please pay attention to the details so you don't have to retcon it. And if you go with some type of ambiguous ending, or not just an ambiguous ending, like there's a subject that they don't want to tie in until later, make it ambivalent to the point where you have wiggle room to write in more information just in case you didn't prep it to begin with. That way you won't have a retcon. Leave some wiggle room. Don't make stuff finite. Even though if it might make the beginning story hotter, you don't want to retcon it on the back end. It's okay if it's going to go on, say leave some more wiggle room so when you get to the ending, things can come together and gel together and you won't have a bunch of plot holes. And those are the 5 subjects with all those examples that I gave you that I think would make a good Power Rangers show, whether it would be a reboot or whether it will be a special. Tell me what you think of my ideas, and you add your own ideas as well, and we'll make videos about it and talk about all our ideas together. Like, share, and subscribe if you feel like it. And as always, may the power protect you. Take care, everybody.